Hi everybody, welcome to Buffalo Brief. I am on the road in Amherst on the 4th floor of Capon Hall at UB, their North Campus. I'm here with Dr. Jim Maynard. He will explain what we're doing. Where are we in front of? The special collections here that anybody can come into.
Yeah, thanks,
Explain
Kelsey.
this. Yeah, of course.
Welcome to the UB Library Special Collections. There are 3 collections up here. There's the poetry collection, which I administer. We operate as the library of record for 20th and 21st century poetry and English. Oh. So we collect comprehensively poetry around the world. And we also have a number of manuscript collections, including the proud home of the UB James Joyce collection, which is the world's largest and most comprehensive collection of manuscripts and other materials by and about the renowned Irish writer. There's also a great rare books collection, University Archives, and then on South Campus there's a wonderful history of medicine collection. And together those 4 collections comprise the library special collections.
Wow. Okay, so that's why we're here today, is to talk about James Joyce. The largest collection of his work is here in Buffalo. Why is that?
A number of historical circumstances, as we'll see in a minute. In 1949, this was 8 years after Joyce had passed away, his family needed to make some money for themselves in post-war Europe. So they had a number of family friends who helped them take their family collection, all of their manuscripts by Joyce, correspondence, photographs, family paintings, as we'll see in a little bit, and they put them all on exhibition at a Paris gallery and bookstore called the Galerie Lehun. And the idea was that at the end of that exhibition period, they would auction it off. Fortunately for Buffalo, fortunately for the university, an English professor named Oscar Silverman, later director of the university libraries, for whom the Silverman Library in which we're standing now is named, happened to be in Paris on sabbatical. Saw the exhibit a few times. The poetry collection had been in operation since 1935, so he recognized an opportunity to add this material to our collection of manuscripts, came back to Buffalo and set into motion a sequence of events that allowed us to make the highest bid.
That is amazing.
Truly an example of the right person being in the right place at the right time, but also recognizing an opportunity when one sees one.
I feel like luck is involved in so many things. Obviously, you have to be a hard worker in life and all those other things, but luck really does play into it.
It certainly does.
As we walked into this special collections room, just first explain what we're looking at before we really get into the James Joyce collection.
Absolutely. So what you're seeing here are all of our public spaces, all of our collections, which are non-circulating, are in temperature and humidity controlled environments.
It feels good in here.
Close stacks behind us. It's a great place in the summer. And what we see here are the tables at which our researchers work. We attract researchers and students from around the world, but we are also open to the public. In terms of our public activities, we do offer reading room exhibitions. Right now we have an exhibition dedicated to longtime Buffalo poet Robert Creeley for the 100th anniversary of his birth this year. And then we also have some additional gallery space and an event area in the back. So we do larger instruction either here at these tables or back in our event area. And then we have a smaller seminar room where I've set up an exhibit of the Joyce materials for you today.
Which I really appreciate.
You want to go see?
I want to go see it. The reason we are really here is obviously to talk about this massive collection, but you guys are so close to creating a big museum that you're going to showcase all of these materials at, or most of them at. That will be built on the South Campus, so
Correct.
It will not be here. It'll be very easily accessible for people. It's right along the NFTA bus line, and it's just maybe a little bit easier for people to park and access in general. Where are we at with building that museum? Because I know it's been many years in the making.
Yeah, well, we're very excited to say that we're going out to bid for general construction in the next couple of weeks with the goal of breaking ground as early as January of 2027, and we're currently projecting an opening for sometime in 2028. So
Wow.
We're very, very excited and thrilled. But to your point, we have for over 75 years now been a cultural destination for Joyce scholars, graduate students, academic researchers from around the world. But really in the last 10 or 15 years, we've taken it as our responsibility and mandate to make this collection much more publicly accessible. So we're excited to have this be in a venue that's much more befitting the entire collection. We can do more curated displays and exhibits, and we can provide a much more comprehensive and meaningful selection of materials for the public to experience. And that's what we want. The whole idea of this project is to invite the entire world to come to Buffalo, New York, to experience James Joyce. And we do a lot of public outreach and promotional events, and I like to begin by asking a series of questions. First, how many people are aware that this great world archive is in their backyard. And increasingly we get a number of hands.
Okay.
And then I'll ask, how many of you have ever seen it before?
Yeah.
Very, very few. So that's the fundamental issue that we're trying to change.
All right, let's talk about who is James Joyce. And if folks don't know who is James Joyce, he was friends with another name you might know, Ernest Hemingway.
Yes?
All right, so tell us, who is James Joyce? He is from Ireland, which is, again, why it's so interesting that this collection is here in Buffalo, New York.
Yes, and our good friend, former state senator, and now Congressman Tim Kennedy, he likes to call Buffalo the capital of Irish America.
Yes.
So we're here to celebrate that as well. In a nutshell, James Joyce, born in 1882, is one of Ireland's most famous writers. In particular, his novel Ulysses is identified as one of the most significant and influential English language novels of the 20th century. And truly, he is a source of creativity and artistic license for a lot of artists and makers and writers around the world. Bloomsday, which is famously the day celebrated in Ulysses, June 16th, 1904, is celebrated around the world with various customs coming out of the novel. And it's a book that has continuously challenged and inspired people to read and reread throughout their life. But what's very interesting for me is that increasingly we get not just lifetime readers of Joyce, but people who may have never read anything, and they say, Jim, you know, I haven't read a lot of Joyce, but I recognize him maybe because of an Irish American background. I recognize him as something historically and culturally important, and we want to be able to experience and connect to that. So that's really at the heart of our plans for the museum, the challenge of how to design a museum experience that will welcome and accommodate both those who have never read Joyce and encourage them to do more, but also to be meaningful and rewarding to lifetime readers.
We have a copy of Ulysses over there. Will you explain, and we can go over next to it and talk about it, will you explain this piece of history that's in front of us right now?
And this is quite a remarkable piece of history.
It is.
So this is what a first edition of Ulysses looks like. This was published in 1922 in Paris by the owner of the lending library and bookstore Shakespeare and Company, Sylvia Beach. And this was a fantastic undertaking that Beach had done. At this point, Ulysses had been banned in a number of countries due to censored content, and Joyce was despairing of finding a publisher for his novel, and it was very important to him that it be finished in time for his 40th birthday, February 2nd, 1922,
wow.
AKA Groundhog's Day for the record.
Oh, yeah.
So thanks to Beach and a number of historical characters, she was able to get two copies of this published in time for his birthday that were rushed on a train from Dijon to Paris. And this is copy 2. So I'll just show you briefly. Here is his inscription to Beach in token of gratitude. James Joyce, Paris, 13 February 1922.
Wow.
Here you can see number 2 of 1,000. And what we have next to the book here are a number of order forms. It was sold by subscription, and you could order one of 3 different tiers depending upon the price and the quality that you were purchasing. So here we have order forms, and we have a number of order forms from really the who's who of early 20th century literary characters, but we've got order forms from Peggy Guggenheim, from William Carlos Williams, and from W.B. Yeats. Including the pen with which Joyce signed the first edition. So in addition to being his publisher, Beach was also really his first great archivist and did really remarkable work to make sure a lot of that work was preserved. And you'll also see some photographs of the 2 of them from Shakespeare and Company. And what I love to see are these historical echoes and rhymes. So as you look at this photograph here, you can see that photograph hanging on the wall behind Joyce.
Oh, yes, you can. Okay, so let's maybe zoom in on Joyce over here. And for folks who are watching, you might recognize that face. A, because you probably know him, but B, if you don't know exactly who he is, there is a pretty large mural in downtown Buffalo of James Joyce. Will you explain where that is? And I think it'll really put oh yeah, that mural, that's who that is in people's head.
Absolutely. We were very excited to put the mural on the side of the Tempio family law building on Franklin Street back in 2021. We worked with the Irish Consulate in New York to publicly launch our comprehensive campaign for the collection, which included plans for the museum. And with the consulate's help, we put that up there really as a metaphor for what we were trying to do with the museum project in terms of taking this archival material that had been in a special collections environment and putting it in the public, making it more visible, making it something that people could feel proud about in terms of being part of Western New York.
Very good. So you guys did that in order to kind of get the word out. And
We
again,
did.
This has been years in the making of getting this museum really off the ground. All right, let's maybe start over there. We
Sure.
skipped the beginning.
It's
and
very
kinda
Joycean
went
to jump
toward
around and to
the
be
end.
non-linear. So
Okay, what are we looking at here?
briefly, this is documentation of that original family exhibition in Paris in 1949. So this was an exhibit of Joyce's work that was organized around his life, his work, and his influence. Here we have two photographs of what the material looked like from that Paris exhibition. So here we're seeing the portraits that you'll see in a couple minutes.
We have those here.
In our room. These are Joyce's canes, which you're seeing right here. Here is a lovely monograph on his ivory cane.
Wow.
Always a very dapper dresser. Here's a beautiful monogram on this cane. We have a bronze copy of the plaster death mask, which is here part of the exhibit. And then these are just some additional personal effects from him. So here are a pair of his glasses. He's also known for sort of having these iconic eyewear. And that was largely the result of having very poor eyesight and suffering from some debilitating eye issues as an adult. We also have two of his passports here. These passports tell a story in many different ways. So as a post-colonial subject, Joyce was British by birth. He could have had an Irish passport late in life, but refused to have one. And that was part of his complicated relationship with Ireland.
Interesting.
But here you can see
Oh, there he is.
a picture of him
Yeah.
from 1935.
And again, you'll recognize that face if you've been in downtown Buffalo. It is a massive mural that is down there on the side of that building.
And then this is has some poignancy in that this is his last visa stamp. So this was when he and his wife Nora fled Paris in advance of the Nazi occupation to Zurich, and he was passed away a few weeks later.
Wow.
So here is a maquette or study of the largely life-size statue of him that sits at his grave in Flintern Cemetery in Zurich, which is where he's buried. And here's a photograph of American poet and his former colleague and friend Ezra Pound visiting him in Zurich.
Wow. Fascinating.
Here are a few of the first editions. So when you go to your yard sales and book sales, this is what you're supposed to be looking for.
I guess so. Yeah, and then take it to the roadshow.
Yeah, that's right. And thankfully for us, because so much came from the family, a lot of our materials are signed to either his family members or in this case, to Sylvia Beach. And I should say too, just as a follow-up, so the collection came to us first from this primary acquisition from Joyce's family, but overall it was 6 waves of acquisitions from 4 primary sources, the other 3 being 2 from B.W. Hubish, Joyce's publisher in New York, 2 significant anchor collections from Sylvia Beach in 1959 and 1962, and then a final acquisition in the 60s from Maria Gela, who had published some of his late work in a magazine called Transition. But truly, we continue to add to the collection however we can on an ongoing basis.
Great. And those acquisitions, obviously, you're paying for those types of things, but were those people wanting to give them to this collection because it was already so vast?
A bit. I mean, we add to it through both purchase and donation. So some materials come in different routes from different people. But really, ever since that first collection came in the fall of 1950, Buffalo has truly been the North American home of Joyce, at least in terms of his archival paper. So that has acted really like a magnet to help attract a lot of the other donations and purchases that we've been able to make.
Got it.
So just in terms of some of the names in which Joyce traveled and some of the collaborations in which he did, here's a Constantine Brancusi portrait of him, a cute little sketch of
Sometimes you look at art and you're like, That is a very famous person who made that.
That's right, that's right. Here
That's
on the other side of
interesting.
the table is an etching from Henri Matisse's illustrations from a 1935 edition of Ulysses, published by the Limited Editions Club. And this was done just 1 year after the Random House edition of Ulysses was first published in the US, because from 1922, most English-speaking countries had banned Ulysses, and it was not available in the States until 1934.
Let's talk about that. Why was it banned?
Obscenity. It was deemed pornographic for some of its scenes. One of the, I think, inspiring parts about Joyce is that he really gives not just creativity and license to experiment with forms, but he also gives a person license to depict and represent all aspects of human experience on the page. And so some of those aspects of human experience got him in trouble with the law, and a number of the vice squads in New York seized a magazine in which he had been previously published called The Little Review, and their editors, Margaret Anderson and Jane Heap, were imprisoned and were fined. So it was a known quantity. Do not publish Ulysses. It will be banned upon publication. But luckily the laws were different in Paris, and Beach was able to take this on. So it was later in the US, the result of a court case, United States v. one book called Ulysses, that it was deemed to be not pornographic and therefore not obscene. So from that point on, it was open for print in the US.
Wow.
What I really want to make sure I
ahead,
show
yes.
you, if I can, and there's a number of other great features here,
Yep.
and Beach's copy that we can come back to, are just a selection of the manuscripts for which we are known. So we've got over 10,000 pages of Joyce's notebooks, handwritten drafts, page proofs, typescripts. And so what we have here are about 30 years of Joyce's writing life. Actually, would you grab that copy of A Portrait of the Artist down there?
Yeah.
And this is a very early Joyce manuscript from about 1904. Thank you. And these were a series that he called his Epiphanies. And these were very short prose vignettes, usually one to a page, but there were these sort of momentary realizations that he thought it was the obligation of the artist to record, these kind of spiritual insights, if you will. And so here's one, if any of your viewers are familiar with Portrait of the Artist as a young man, where Stephen Dedalus is very young age underneath his parents' table, and he's hearing the adults speak around him, and he's sort of processing their voices and the sounds of what they're saying, and they're talking about him having to apologize, or else the eagles will come and pull out his eyes.
I see that
So you
there.
can see here's the manuscript that gets incorporated pretty much verbatim.
Yeah, pull out his eyes, apologize, apologize. So we can see that there, and then
And there it is.
there it is.
And that's, you can tell, a very early Joyce manuscript because it's very legible as we move along in the decades.
Okay.
As the eyesight
As his
degrades,
eyesight, yeah.
absolutely, so too does the handwriting. So this is also an early Joyce manuscript. This is written in his sister Mabel Joyce's schoolbook. So you can see her signature there. Before Portrait of the Artist was published in 1916, it was an abandoned, longer autobiographical novel called Stephen Hero. And before it was Stephen Hero, it was an essay he'd written after college called A Portrait of the Artist. So this is a fair copy. You know, it's meant to be a neat representation or rendition
Wow.
of the essay. But what's neat is you can see his juvenile signature. That's how he signed his name as a young man. James Augustine Aloysius Joyce. And here at the end is a more fragmentary list of the characters that would ultimately appear in the fictionalized form.
Wow.
And then at the end here we have his 1928 note to Beach documenting the circumstances of the manuscript, and then that's her note in acceptance. So you can see how much the handwriting and thus the eyesight has
It
changed
has changed quite a bit.
in 24 years.
Jim, how did you get so involved in this?
Oh, well, I had the great fortune of coming here to do a PhD in the English department, and particularly the poetics program. So I started working here as a graduate student, did my dissertation on the American poet Robert Duncan, whose papers are also here. We have about 185 manuscript collections, Duncan and Joyce being two of them. And I've had the great fortune to be here ever since.
Wow. You are so knowledgeable in all of this. And obviously, you wanted this museum so badly and really have pushed for this. This wouldn't have happened without you.
Well, we're very fortunate to be able to share this material, and we want to be able to share it on a wider and more meaningful level. So as much as it's enjoyable to bring all this material out and to show it to people like you one-on-one, we want to do it at a level to scale and in a way that's much more comprehensive. Yeah. So that's why we're so excited about plans for the museum.
Great.
It will truly give people transformative experiences in terms of seeing the Joyce collection. This is a representative of a Ulysses notebook. And he just kept revising and revising and revising. Again, he needed this to be finished in time for his 40th birthday. That was very personally meaningful to him.
What are the colors?
That's what
green is keep,
everybody
red is
asks.
Take out?
The hope, I think, was that maybe, given this difficult novel, maybe the colors will tell us something about what's happening behind the scenes. But to a person, every Joyce scholar that's ever come through here has said that the colors themselves mean nothing other than one day he was working with a green crayon, one day with red or blue. But he was oftentimes working across multiple manuscripts. He had multiple stages of the manuscripts in process. And so for him, crossing something out meant that he had migrated it to the next manifestation of the text, because then he wouldn't have to keep thinking about it.
Got it.
So presumably anything that's not crossed out didn't go any further than this manuscript. But they're beautiful as just aesthetic objects.
Obviously well before computers and all of that as well. All right, I do want, before we leave this room, I do want to mention a couple of the Ernest Hemingway things that are in here, because I think that is also fascinating for people. There's a book here, and then there's a letter from Ernest to James Joyce.
Sure, let's take a look at both. Okay. I'll just say that these are three examples of Joyce's library books. These were all left behind in Paris when he had to leave with Nora. So this is another great modernist text from 1922. This is T.S. Eliot's The Wasteland, inscribed to him with homage and admiration from T.S. Eliot. This is an inscribed collected poems of W.B. Yeats, with whom he had an infamously cool relationship. Wow. There you can see Yeats's inscription. And then lastly, here is a first edition of Hemingway's Farewell to Arms, which, like Ulysses, was also censored. So here you can see Hemingway's inscription to Joyce with complete admiration and much affection, and his note about the misspelled Italian words in the dashes. And I do recommend for anybody who's interested in this time period, who's interested in modernist and expatriate Paris, Sylvia Beach's memoir, simply called Shakespeare and Company. It is a fantastic read. She talks all about the characters with whom she interacted. She's very humble, she's very funny, she's very modest, but it's a great read for anybody who's interested in that time period. Okay. And it's still in print.
Right. The note
from
Ernest to James Joyce it's just fascinating to see all of this.
And again, this is just a small selection of what we can make available to guests, to visitors, to scholars, to researchers, to students. We do a lot of work with instructional.
Will you just read that one part about the eyes?
I will. This is rather noteworthy. So it ends here with him talking about him relating to Joyce's eyesight and the difficulties of Joyce's operations and procedures. So he talks about a scene where his son pokes him in the eye when he's putting him on the toilet at night. And he says, my boy, when I picked him up to put him on the pot at night, coming in here, poked his finger in my eye and the nail cut the pupil. For 10 days I had a little taste of how things might be with you. It hurt like hell even with the cocaine wash the doctor gave me to take care of the pain, but is all right now. I hope you are well and that everything goes well with you. Yours always, Ernest Hemingway.
The note from Ernest Hemingway to James Joyce in
1928. So around about the same time period as Farewell to Arms. So if we walk over here, we can see the family portraits.
And this will all be moved into the museum.
Yes, a large selection of what you've seen here will be featured. We've got about 11,000 square feet to work with on UB South Campus, the first floor of now Abbott Hall, the original Lockwood Memorial Library. And we have 6 gallery spaces organized in 3 adjacent spaces. So there is a common area that'll be open whenever the building is open. And you'll walk in there and then go into the museum proper. There'll be 3 gallery spaces that are organized around the early, middle, and late period of Joyce's writing life. So you'll see a lot of the personal effects, a lot of the manuscripts, but also a lot more that we're now not able to put out in a room environment like that. And then we also have a flex space that will allow us to do community engagement, instruction, meetings, presentations, events, but also more flexible casework that we can do more temporary exhibits to amplify the stories told in the other galleries.
Great.
And then in back of the common area, we're very excited to have a space that we're calling Ulysses Unbound. So we're working with a media production company to do animated excerpts of the 18 episodes of Ulysses to really translate into audio and visual terms some of the literary innovations and experimentation that Joyce is doing on the page. So we're hoping that they'll be entertaining and accessible and not just present the content of the book, but also to demonstrate in their own way some of the classical underpinnings, but also some of his storytelling techniques as well.
Wow.
So very exciting, very exciting.
It's huge, it's huge. All right, what are we looking at here?
So here we're looking at Joyce's paternal grandparents and great-grandparents. These are the portraits that he traveled around Europe with after he and Nora left Ireland for good. He lived classically the life of a writer in exile. He left Ireland as a young man, returned a few times, and after 1912, never came back. But yet never stopped writing about Ireland in really exquisite detail, both in Ulysses, which took 7 years to write, and then in Finnegan's Wake, which took 17 years to write, being published in 1939.
That's his father that we're looking at there.
That's his father. And
he looks a little troubled.
Colm Tóibín has a great book of essays called Mad, Bad, and Dangerous to Know, which is about the fathers of Joyce, Yeats, and Wilde.
Wow.
So I don't know if his father there is mad, bad, or dangerous to know, or all the above, but he's an anxious-looking fellow. Notoriously, mismanaged a lot of the family's funds and led to a lot of hardships for Joyce's upbringing. But by the same artist, Patrick Tuohy, is also this great portrait over here of Joyce, which I like very much.
That is nice.
Joyce complained having to sit something like 26 times for this portrait, so he wasn't very happy about that.
Wow. All right, I think we should end this with, one more time, the details on that museum, when you are expecting that to open and exactly where folks can find that.
Absolutely. We'll be on the University's South Campus. It will be in the original Lockwood Memorial Library, then known as Health Sciences Library, now Abbott Hall, on the first floor. We're opening sometime in 2028, depending upon schedules. It's still a little bit too early to say, but we are excited to be going out for bid in the next couple of weeks for general construction, and then we'll have some other supplement packages going out as well. So I've truly had a great team of people working on this project for a long time, and we just couldn't be more excited to have people come and experience this great collection for themselves.
Well, there you go. If you want to see anything beforehand, obviously the fourth floor here at Capon Hall, you are all welcome to come here. But 2028, a couple of years from now, maybe a year and a half from now, we will see the opening of this museum, and we will continue to follow that as well.
I would like that very much.
Yeah.
Thanks so much,
Jim,
Kelsey.
thank you so much
Appreciate
for joining
your time
us.
today.
This was fascinating. I had no idea this was here. Thank you to Jackie Walker for letting me know about this. All right, thanks for joining us today for Buffalo Brief. We will see you tomorrow.